This book, our Constitution, protects our society and empowers us to govern. The Protea leaves are us, the people, who freely elect our voices in Parliament. The drum calls the people of Parliament, through whom we govern together. And the sun is our country, healing our past, improving our lives, and energizing our potential. Together, our Constitution, our people, our Parliament, and our country are building our great South African nation. Parliament TV, Channel 408 on DSTV.
A very warm welcome to you. We are live from Parliament Studios here in Cape Town. I am Tepa Mori. As the legislative branch of the state, Parliament is responsible for making laws, performing oversight and holding the executive to account, and improving public participation and involvement. By fulfilling these responsibilities, Parliament and its committees are aware of the socio-economic issues in South Africa, such as the high unemployment rates, poverty, social inequality, and inadequate public service access. Government, specifically the Department of Social Development, is tasked with providing social grants to the most vulnerable people in our communities. The Social Grants Program is the government's largest anti-poverty interventions, covering a total of 28 million beneficiaries. Social grants are in place to help improve the living standards of the impoverished and vulnerable communities. These grants are distributed to beneficiaries through the South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, which is a national agency of the South African government that was created in April of 2005 to administer the country's social security system, by the way, by distributing social grants on behalf of the Department of Social Development. One of the grants that SASSA distributes is the Social Relief of Distress Grant, which was first introduced in May 2020. At the height of COVID-19, the grant has since been under the national microscope after 2 Stellenbosch University students uncovered serious shortcomings in the agency's Social Relief of Distress Grant system after they had discovered that their IDs had been used to apply for the SRD grants without their knowledge. The parliamentary committee that bears the responsibility of overseeing and holding the Department of Social Development to account is the Portfolio Committee on Social Development. And since the discovery, the 2 students had appeared before the committee to make a presentation, and this was on Wednesday, the 23rd of October 2024. The minister was also there. Let's take a look at what she had to say during this committee meeting with her opening remarks. Stay tuned.
We are here now today because they allowed us to get into their personal space because it was not out of any kind of curiosity. It was because of what they've gone through as younger people who deserve to get grants because the Constitution dictates so. And SASSA and DSD is given that responsibility. Therefore, it's the DSD's mandate through SASSA, its entity, to make sure that this grant is being distributed to the right place, to the right people at the right time. So I really appreciate these 2 young men to have been able to, in their own way, to bring us closer to what the problem is. Because between ourselves, we have been talking about it, we had a lot of time, and they brought it to us in a manner that says, you don't have time. You rather resolve the matter now. Other than that, you will be alleged to be one of those who took away the least thing that the poor people had. And you took away what was supposed to be theirs and create an impression that you are doing them a favor. Therefore, we have undermined their constitutional right. Maybe you should have gone to appear before the structures that are relevant to that effect when a department of government is not adhering to its own constitutional responsibility. We don't take that lightly. and in fact, we are taking it very, very serious. For that reason, Honourable Chairperson, that this problem has been traced back, the earliest is 2023. I guess with thorough investigation, it can take us beyond. If we can start to listen and hear closely all the complaints that people were making.
And that was Minister Tolashe's opening remarks on the issue of the alleged SRD grants fraud in an oversight meeting of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development. I am joined by the chairperson of the committee, Ms. Bridget Masango, to further unpack the details of the presentation, the committee's role, and the measures that have been put in place to get to the bottom of the issue. Chair, thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, the two students from Stellenbosch made these presentations before the committee. What were your initial thoughts when you heard about how easy it is for people to defraud the SASSA system?
I must say it was a bit on the shocking side because while we've heard of issues that are taking place in the grant system, we didn't have, in our minds at least, the scale that was presented by these young people.
And with that, of course, the presentation was based on a certain methodology. There was a survey that was conducted. Was the committee satisfied with the methodology that was used to uncover the findings that were presented to it?
Yes, we were partly satisfied, although if you're talking about 8-9 million grants in the system, and then you have only 60 that you use, while it was a bit curious, to say that of the 60, 58 had the applications in the system already done without them making them, and 56 of those had not lodged any application. So it was a bit of a thing that says, please don't let this scale be in the real numbers that we are talking about.
And with that, we always talk about the importance of having Parliament and its committees be accessible to the people. Yes. We talk about Parliament for the people, by the people.
Yes.
How important is it that Parliament then offers this kind of platform to fulfill their oversight work, where you have two students from Stellenbosch who have discovered this major issue of defrauding that's happening at SASSA, to be able to come to a committee such as the one that you chair and share this information with the committee?
Well, it actually helps us as the committee to underscore the responsibility of ensuring that the public is part of whatever it is done about its own parliament, because this is a people's parliament. I mean, even the introduction, so nicely put it before we started. And it underscores the fact that it does not matter who you are, as long as you are a South African and you have seen something that you believe is concerning, and especially when it talks about the money of the taxpayers,
of course,
and to bring that forward and to be given that access to bring it forward is for us what we actually are mandated to do by Constitution itself.
And perhaps while the committee was hearing this information, did it ever come across to the committee that it could be possible that the defrauding that has happened, or allegedly has happened, could have prevented the most deserving of citizens from getting access to the SRD grant?
Yes, it has. It has, because when they described how you do not have to hack the system. It's just there, available. And yet there are people who are deserving that cannot access the very easy to access system because partly they don't have the smartphones.
The technology.
They don't, if they know they have the phone, they don't have the airtime. If they have the airtime, they don't have the know-how of entering the system. That the system is, to the knowing, those who know, is so easy. But to those who don't, it's still very difficult. And it is at that level where we are saying the people that should be able to access the system must be made to do so, while preventing those that shouldn't be accessing the system. And it is a very two-edged sword, because when it was introduced, the grant, nobody could go anywhere. Nobody could go to SASSA offices. Nobody could go anywhere. So the government was looking at a way to have the money get to the people in the easiest and most accessible way possible. But now that there are other means of doing this, let us review this and see how it is that the most eligible people get the grant and shut out the ineligible people, which we still believe are still accessing this money.
Now, the two students, Mr. Veer Hosai and Jules Cetris, made the submissions to the committee during the committee meeting on Wednesday, 23 October 2024. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
We generated ID numbers using the ID algorithm and fed these into the SRD system. This system tells you whether or not an ID number has an application or not. And these results were then aggregated, and from here we drew conclusions. We also compared these numbers with various relevant figures such as Stats SA birth data and unemployment figures. We ended up identifying 3 complications in this process. Firstly, we found that there was no form of authentication on SASSA's SRD portal. This allowed us to query the portal hundreds of thousands of times. Secondly, we found many suspected fraudulent applications. And thirdly, we feel that it is simply too easy at the moment to apply for the SRD grant, and this enables fraudsters to apply very easily. Throughout this process, we only used legal methods to gather our findings. This included the public SASSA SRD portal. This portal is publicly available for anyone to use, and all we needed to check whether or not someone had an application was an ID number, which we then generated.
How did we generate these ID numbers? Well, through visiting various government websites, this is completely publicized information. For those of you who don't know, ID numbers are generated in the following way. It's your year you were born, followed by the month, the day, 4 digits which will range from 0 to 4,999 if you are female. Then it goes from 5,000 to 9,999 if you're male, followed by 08, and then a checksum digit which we can calculate using a little bit of math. We created a program which allowed us to generate ID numbers sequentially, which we could then feed into the SASSA system to get a response from.
As part of our on-campus informal survey, we asked 60 people that we know to verbally participate in our survey. What they did was they entered their ID numbers into the portal and checked whether or not they have an application. Of these 60 people, 58 of them had active applications, and of those 58, 56 of them did not make the application themselves.
You're still tuned into Parliament's TV, and if you've just joined us, welcome. We are in studio with Ms. Bridget Masango, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development, unpacking the issue of allegations of fraud with the Social Relief of Distress grant system that is administered by SASSA. Chair, so far we've spoken about the methodology that the two students used to come up with the survey and come up with the results that they presented before the committee. Right. You have mentioned that the committee was satisfied with the methodology that was used. Let's talk about fraud prevention measures now. Yes. Of course, I think SASSA throughout the years they've had allegations of fraud throughout, right? Yes. And I think so far we've realized that the 7th administration, the message is implementation, having tangible results that are felt by the people on the ground. Right. After hearing the three main complications that the students brought to the committee, such as the fact that you can just enter your ID, there's no authentication system on a whole SASSA agency that provides such a huge service to the most vulnerable people in South Africa. What were some of the committee's concerns?
The concerns that were quite prevalent among the members of the committee is the vulnerability of the system. If the system is that vulnerable, but you still have people who should be getting the money not getting it, so who is getting the money? Because if the system is as open as this student said, to a fraudster, that is open season.
Absolutely.
You know, and so whilst we did not get to know whether the 60 people, although we knew that the two students themselves had bank accounts opened in their names and money is paid, we don't know about the 56, obviously, which then means that we don't know about the myriad of other potentially opened applications that are active in the system, because that is, for me, the crux of the concern. What if those randomly generated ID numbers who have active applications on the system are actually in payment? What does that mean to South Africa? It's money, taxpayers' money, but most importantly, the poor and vulnerable for whom this whole system was created. And also, what also is concerning is that the AG, I think it's 3 weeks before the 23rd of October, where we met with the AG itself, and they were saying to us, in that report, which was the 2023-2024 report, I believe, in that report, there were still ineligible people receiving the grant from SASSA after all the revelations we've had before the two students, which means that the vulnerability of the system is not in question, that we all agreed upon. But it is the measures that have been taken to make sure. I vividly remember a meeting that we had with SASSA at one stage when they came to present their annual performance plans, where the CIO of SASSA, Chief Information Officer of SASSA, said the system has since been strengthened and it's robust, and it's making sure that, you know, even the investigation that have anything to do with what might have happened in the past are ongoing, and so on and so forth. And then so many years later, you still get a situation like this. Then it gets one, you know, very concerned about whether what we receive in presentations is what is taking place on the ground.
Now, with that, of course, the committee plays an oversight role, it being the legislative, the legislature, right?
Yes.
Then you have the executive, and the executive obviously employs or appoints these agencies so that they can fulfill their functions.
Right.
How is the committee satisfied with the oversight that the department has played over the agency?
No, it's not. I think I did mention that even at the meeting that we had on the 23rd, that even the AG has been quite vocal about its concern over the level of oversight, if any, that is exercised by the department over SASSA, over its entities, let me put it that way. And that is clear. If for example, if I can give you an example of what happened on the 3rd of October this year. That was the day when the older persons were receiving their grants for October. And I received a call at 5:45 that morning from a councillor in the Vaal region, yes, saying to me that people are not accessing their money because the card is blocked. The SASSA card is blocked. So in the panic at the time of the morning and imagining the scores of older persons everywhere in the country in long queues, and having hired, what I know for a fact is that older persons in rural South Africa hire combis to take them, pay them money to take them to the nearest city because the post office has been closed. So those people have taken money they didn't have, borrowed it, paid the taxi owner, driver, only to get there and not get the money. So that was what was ringing in my mind when I received this call. So my first thing was to contact the CEO of SASSA and said, what is going on? And the CEO did not know that this was happening. But it turned out that it was stemming out of the transitioning from the SASSA Gold card to the Postbank Black card. But in the process, the recipient or the beneficiary, who is poor and vulnerable, already categorized as such, has not gotten the money. And we all know how life-saving those grants are.
Of course, of course. And I can imagine that, I mean, we've always said that there have been series of allegations of fraud throughout. And it's a web, because it's not just the SRD. You have the elderly, just like you mentioned.
Yes.
I mean, what are some of the commitments that SASSA or the department have said to the committee in terms of strengthening and the verification processes for grant applications, or to prevent fraud?
Right. One of the things that happened was that SASSA said that they are now transitioning the entire suite of grants into online.
All right.
Okay, which is understandable and welcome, in fact, because it will mean that those who know how to access the system can get to apply without clogging the queues at SASSA offices. So we get that and we accept that and we welcome it. But what does that do to the person that still has to go to SASSA and still have to stand in a queue? And so the promises that were made is that they are going to be doing a hybrid type thing where they will open the online application, but also there will be walk-ins. They even went a step further about the walk-ins and say they will now in a week say that on Monday is the older persons who come to do their applications, to do their queries and so on and so forth. And then on Tuesday it is the people with disabilities, and then and so forth and so on. But these queries don't know that. The query that I have does not know that I have to wait. It will not wait for it to happen on this day. So we understand all that. But we were appreciative of the initiatives that they were making, except that was not happening on the spot.
Of course. Now then, how will the committee then ensure collaboration between SASSA, the law enforcement and other stakeholders to prevent cases of fraud?
Well, we have to use that. We have to really look at approaching these, because these are government entities.
Of course.
They are there for precisely that. And we've had in the life of SASSA at least, in the past, we've had to use the CSIR to look at systems and to see how the systems can help. We know of SIU reports that have been done on SASSA, on the department and its entities. The one thing that is of huge concern is that those reports are not implemented.
Unfortunately.
And we are only, as you said earlier, we are only a legislative arm of government, sphere of government or arm of government. We're oversighting implementation, but we cannot ourselves go in there and say, you implement this and you implement that. So we appreciate that. And in fact, we need to, with this revelation, we need to explore,
of course,
as the committee, to say, as we are waiting for this investigation that must come back in a month's time, since the 23rd, that how can we then explore going into other government agencies that can actually look into this.
And basically strengthening the committee's oversight function.
Yes, yes, yes.
The Portfolio Committee on Social Development is responsible for ensuring that the executive performs its functions and fulfills its responsibilities. Take a look at the Minister's response to some of the concerns raised by the committee on the 23rd of October 2024. Stay tuned.
We are here now today because they allowed us to get into their personal space, because it was not out of any kind of curiosity. It was because of what they've gone through as younger people who deserve to get grants because the Constitution dictates so. And SASSA and DSD is given that responsibility. Therefore, it's the DSD's mandate through SASSA, its entity, to make sure that this grant is being distributed to the right place, to the right people at the right time. So I really appreciate these two young men to have been able to, in their own way, to bring us closer to what the problem is. Because between ourselves, we have been talking about it, we had a lot of time, and they brought it to us in a manner that says, you don't have time. You rather resolve the matter now. Other than that, you will be alleged to be one of those who took away the least thing that the poor people had. And you took away what was supposed to be theirs and create an impression that you are doing them a favor. Therefore, we have undermined their constitutional right. Maybe you should have gone to appear before the structures that are relevant to that effect when a department of government is not adhering to its own constitutional responsibility. We don't take that lightly. And in fact, we are taking it very, very seriously. For that reason, Honorable Chairperson, that this problem has been traced back, the earliest is 2023. I guess with thorough investigation, it can take us beyond. If we can start to listen and hear closely all the complaints that people were making, but also come closer through an intensive investigation into our own system. Yes, SASSA might have done that, but there are two eyes. I mean, their systems, they could not pick up anything. The fact that we are here today is because they couldn't. I don't want to address myself to the attitude. This attitude of when people raise issues, don't know, there's time, we can resolve them later, there's no hurry. I think I must take upon myself, DM, to say we had to deal with that. There's no way that we can delay what is more urgent to the poor people.
That was the oversight meeting of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development held on the 23rd of October 2024, where Minister Tolashe, the Department of Social Services, and the two Stellenbosch students who uncovered the evidence of potential fraud on the SRD grants application system briefed the committee on their findings and solutions. Of course, the minister at the beginning had thanked and acknowledged the students for coming forward and ensuring that this information came to light. Chair, let's discuss the fact that the minister, of course, she requested that the department be granted 30 days from the 23rd to investigate the issue and get to the bottom of it before they can report to the committee. Why did the committee grant this?
You know, we had received that presentation that SASSA was going to do on that day, as well as the presentation of the two students. And as the meeting unfolded, and the presentation by the two students was being done, it became very clear that there was no way that presentation that we had received from SASSA, however spoken to it would never cover the magnitude of the problem that was displayed in the presentation of the two students. While I was hesitant, I must say, because obviously you have an agenda, you must finish the agenda, and so on and so forth. But I needed to be to listen to what the minister had to say, you know, because it's not in the interest of just ticking boxes because you have a meeting and an agenda, but it has to go beyond that and be saying what are the issues at stake here, and how do we get to a destination where we solve the problem and not be bogged down by the structures and the problems and the fact that we have a meeting, so we must go take it to the end and so on and so forth. And I mean, you would have seen that I had to adjourn the meeting for a short period of time, because for me that was unprecedented, that I'm now not going to take the meeting to the end. I'm a newbie in this whole thing, by the way. So when I spoke to the minister then during that brief adjournment, she explained to me to say, Bridget, Chairperson, we will not be doing a favor. We will not be doing justice to this process if we allow this presentation as you know it to go on. So I was encouraged by that, but also it made me confident to be able to, on behalf of the committee, obviously grant the permission to the minister.
Now, with this, in light of this evidence that comes from the two students, of course, and now the committee is awaiting the report on the investigation that the minister has now committed to performing. Is the committee satisfied that the agency is sufficiently equipped to continue with the administration of grants?
We want. There are concerns, obviously, at the back of our mind, I know. Given the length of time that we discussed earlier on. But we want to give this process due, what can I say, due time to prove that, for me to be able to answer that question without any hesitation as to the ability of the or capacity even of the agency to carry out this work, because the SASSA Act says that in a summary that SASSA is here to administer, to manage, and to pay the grant. And so we need to ask ourselves, then when we get this report, and of course using all the information that we have from the AG, from civil society and so on and so forth, to say, is SASSA still doing those things? And if SASSA is found wanting, then we are in a better position to answer the question that you are asking, whether we even have to go back to the SASSA Act as legislators and say, can we relook at this act? And so on and so forth. But I mean, that doesn't also take away from the fact that we, as the first, marching orders that we gave to the minister when she came in was to say, fill the key positions in the department and its entities, because things are falling between the cracks, and we are talking about a department and its entities that is getting no less than R250 billion per year.
Now, with that, you mentioned the AG, and of course its oversight and its function in all of this. Has the SRD grant ever been audited since its inception of 2020?
Yes, I believe that it has been, because we have been receiving the audit reports that talk to the department as a whole, SASSA as a whole, and the SRD grant as in particular. So we know that they have been audited. We know also this is where all these complaints are coming from the AG. I seem to remember the Auditor General herself, talking about, because as a program of government that came directly from the presidency, it had to be under scrutiny to make sure that there is nothing wrong that is happening with it. And the Auditor General was tasked, I believe, to have SASSA and the SRD in particular as one of those programs that were given, especially during the COVID-19. So that auditing continued to happen. But I really would like your question to say to me, what is SASSA's internal audit doing? Because that's where I'm stuck. Even as we were granting the minister the time that she needed for the investigation, I said, Minister, what you can do for me also is to let me know what is the department's internal audit doing, and what is SASSA's internal audit doing? What is their role in this whole thing? Because we can't have these people. I mean, they are auditors. They are paid money that is due to auditors.
Of course.
So what has been their role in all this?
Of course, now you've mentioned a recommendation that you made to the minister with regards to the investigation that she's going to do in 30 days' time, since the 23rd of October, of course.
Yes.
How does the committee then intend to monitor and evaluate the department's commitment in ensuring that they do a thorough investigation and come back to the committee with a conclusive report that is comprehensive of all the challenges and all the recommendations that they have to ensure that they combat the issue of fraud within SASSA?
In the invitation itself, because although we granted what the minister asked, but Parliament dictates that we actually issue an invitation to a department to come and then outline specifically what it is that we are expecting at that meeting. And that is where we are saying we are outlining all these issues to say, let that investigation look at the vulnerability of the system. Let it look at all these weaknesses that have been pointed out. And we also would like internal people of SASSA, although we wouldn't want the investigation to be done by SASSA, because who has ever investigated themselves and things went okay? And we also can't have the department investigate its own entity, because when has that ever happened? And the results were satisfactory. So that is what we are saying, that we are issuing out a specific issues that need to be looked at. But also, as the committee, we already said that we would have a standing agenda item for every single meeting to be given an update of what is going on in this, because obviously we may have been laxed in the past, in the previous administration, and now we don't have that luxury. Yeah.
Chair, any final remarks or even words of encouragement, especially to members of the public who, like the two Stellenbosch students, discover and uncover such issues like defrauding, agencies such as this that distribute and serve the most vulnerable communities? Any words of encouragement to them to step forward? And any final remarks from your side?
For me, Parliament is for the people of South Africa. We are just public representatives that represent the public. But obviously, on my own, for example, I cannot represent all 62 million people of South Africa. So, which is why we are really encouraging and imploring every single South African who has any suspicion or concern, and that has been happening actually. I must first thank many South Africans that have come forward with their concerns, with their complaints, which we receive I receive at least every hour of the day. I am saying, this is your parliament. We are serving you. You voted for us to come here so that we can represent you, because not all of 62 million of us can be here. So please come forward. Use the information, or contact information that is, I believe, is in the Parliament website to get hold of us, to get hold of the Portfolio Committee Secretary. Just get hold of someone. I will definitely know what is going on, and I will know what it is that you are saying, and we will respond to it as best as we can.
Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that was the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development, Ms. Bridget Masango, discussing the allegations of fraud in the social relief of distress grant system that so many South Africans depend on. Take a look at the chairperson's final remarks during that oversight meeting. Take a look.
As members were asking questions after the presentation by our guests, Mr. Kosai and Mr. Cedras, it became clear that the issues that the members are raising related to not only the SRD grant, but to other grants as well. There were questions that were asked, or there were comments that were made by honourable members that say someone did not get the child support grant, or they didn't get this, or they didn't get that, or their identity was stolen, and so on and so forth. And the feeling is that this presentation that we have received some time ago does not cater for all those things. Now, I must say to you that whilst there's still time for SASSA to present and for us to deliberate on their presentation, I am not convinced that we will get what this meeting was set up for, to actually traverse all the issues that have been raised here in this meeting. I don't know what the parliamentary procedural processes say to a situation where a chairperson says, okay, we're going as far as this in this agenda, and then we will complete the agenda next time, in 30 days' time. But I would like to thank the Minister for having opened up to me to say, I don't even want this presentation to happen because it's nowhere near covering the issues that are being raised in this meeting. In fact, this presentation is relating to what the article and the television interviews have taken care of as far as the SRD grant is concerned in the recent past. It does not go back as far as what some members said. It was in 2023. This was already happening. The public was already raising these issues sharply.
Parliament bears the responsibility of lawmaking, oversight, holding the executive to account, and the improvement of public participation and involvement by remaining aware of societal ills, being transparent and accessible to the public. It strives to stay abreast of long-standing socio-economic issues such as high unemployment rates, poverty, social inequality, and inadequate public service access, and provide tangible solutions to eradicate these challenges. Due to the seriousness of the students' findings on the possible SRD grant fraud, the Portfolio Committee on Social Development resolved to give the department and SASSA 30 days to conduct a full investigation into the matter and to thereafter present a detailed report to the committee at the request of the Minister. Now, for more information on the work of Parliament and the Portfolio Committee on Social Development, visit our website at www.parliament.gov.za. To stay informed about Parliament's engagements, follow, like and subscribe on all our social media networks at Parliament of RSA and have your say by joining the conversation and sharing your views on the SRD grants allegations of fraud. After all, it is your Parliament, your voice, your future. Thank you for watching Parliament TV. I am Tepa Mori. Take care.